him, Lieutenant Colonel, never speak about what you saw.
He thought he was going to a training ground, but that place was not a training ground. It was a space filled with the mingled echoes of unfamiliar screams and red lights. His breath grew short. The tips of his fingers trembled. The air that day was thick with urgency and dread. He had been the core of the unit, a lieutenant colonel in a special forces brigade. But that night, he abandoned everything and fled North Korea. What on earth did he see that made him run like that?
If you subscribe for free and leave a like, it greatly helps raise international awareness about the harsh realities faced by the people of North Korea. And please let us know where you are watching from in the comments.
It was a dark dawn. My breath was stuck in my throat. My heart was pounding so hard it sounded like it was hitting my eardrums. And my mouth tasted like iron from the blood. One more step and I would be at the border. Behind me, I could hear dogs barking. Then suddenly, they stopped. That was even more terrifying. It meant the dogs had caught my scent. Over there are footprints. I heard someone shout in Korean, my mother tongue. But right then, it was the last language I wanted to hear. I ran even faster. The snow under my feet gave way with every step. Snow shoved itself into my worn-out military boots. My toes were burning with cold. A flashlight beam swept across my back. Stop! A shout rang out. I did not stop. Bang! A gunshot. A bullet ripped past above my head. My ears rang. I heard a pine branch snap somewhere nearby. Warning shots, I thought. Next time, it will not be a warning. I tumbled down a slope. My body slammed into rocks. My ribs throbbed with pain. But I kept rolling. At last, I hit the bottom. When I opened my eyes, there was a river in front of me. The border river. Its frozen surface shone silver under the moonlight. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Several people, at least 5, I guessed. He went toward the river. Cut him off. I had no choice. I leaped onto the ice. My first step landed. Creak. A chilling sound. Cracks spread under my feet. Thin white veins crawling through the ice. My heart almost stopped, but I could not stop. I took a second step. A third. A fourth. Behind me, someone shouted. Do not go out on the river. It is dangerous. They knew too. They knew how thin this ice was. Bang. Bang. More gunshots. This time, the bullets hit the ice right next to my feet. Shards of ice flew up. Creak. Crack. The fissures split wider. If this goes on, I am going to fall in. I held my breath and tried to move faster. Now I was almost running. I had reached about the middle of the river when it happened. Quad Duke. The ice beneath me broke. My body reacted before I could think. I hurled myself forward. Both my arms shot out and grabbed the ice ahead of me. From the waist down, I plunged into the water. Ugh, the sound slipped out on its own. The water was cold. No, cold is not enough to describe it. It felt like my legs were being cut open with knives. Sensation vanished from my lower body. I clawed at the ice with my fingernails, dragging my body up. Blood seeped out from under the nails, but I felt no pain. Somehow, I managed to haul myself back onto the ice. I looked back. 5 silhouettes stood at the riverbank. Their flashlights shone straight at me. One of them shouted, "Come back. If you come back now, we can still forgive you." It was a lie, and I knew it, because they knew what I had seen. Just as I knew, I got to my feet. My soaked pants froze almost instantly. The stiff fabric gripped my legs. Still, I kept walking. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Finally, I could see the opposite bank. I had lived 27 years on that side. Now I had 27 steps left. 20 steps. 15 steps. 10 steps. Bang. The final gunshot rang out. A bullet grazed my shoulder. White-hot pain shot through me. But I did not stop. 5 steps. 3 steps. 1 step. My foot touched solid ground. My knees gave out. I collapsed into the snow. Cold snow pressed against my face. My lips were cracked and bleeding. The tips of my fingers had turned white, but I was still alive. Behind me, There was no sound. They had not come across the river. They could not. Slowly, I lifted my head. A dark forest stretched out before me. It was unfamiliar land, but from that moment, it was my land. Land I had chosen to stay alive. I forced my trembling legs to stand. Blood trickled from my shoulder. Red drops fell onto the white snow. It is fine, I told myself. This much is fine. I walked again. Forward. Only forward. I did not look back. I stepped into the dark forest. Branches scraped across my face, but I barely felt it. About an hour later, my legs finally gave out. I could not walk anymore. I sank down under a tree. That was when the thought hit me. How did I end up like this? I had been a lieutenant colonel in the Special Forces, a loyal soldier of the regime. How had I become a man running across a frozen river in the dead of night, fleeing for my life? I closed my eyes. The memory surfaced. The night when it all began. It was 3 months earlier. Back then, I was more loyal than anyone. I was proud of it. I was a lieutenant colonel in a Special Forces unit. Every time I received a new rank, my chest swelled with pride. In my 27 years of life, those were my proudest moments. I served at a secret base on the northern outskirts of the capital, a place that did not exist on any map. You had to pass through 3 security checkpoints even to get near it. At the first checkpoint, they checked your ID. At the second, they took your fingerprints. At the third, they scanned your retinas. We were called Soldiers Without Borders. When orders came, we went anywhere. Into the mountains, across the sea, beyond the border. It did not matter where. It was early December 2015. At 5 in the morning, an emergency call-up order came down. Beep, beep, beep. The radio screamed loud enough to tear my eardrums. All personnel, assemble in the briefing room. Within 10 minutes. The voice sounded different that day. It was trembling. I sprang up from my bunk. I hurried into my uniform. My hands were shaking. I fumbled the buttons 3 times before I finally got them right. I stepped into the corridor. Other officers were spilling out of their rooms. Their faces were still half asleep, but their eyes were clear, tense. The briefing room was about 100 meters away. I ran down the cold hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered overhead. When I reached the briefing room door, I drew a deep breath. I opened it. A blast of cold air hit my face. The heating was off. White puffs of breath hung in front of everyone. About 20 officers were already seated, all with the same expression, a mix of tension and fear. No one spoke. I quietly took a seat in the back. On the table lay stacks of documents. In red letters, the covers read Top Secret. Beneath that, in small print, it said Court-Martial for unauthorized viewing. A chill ran down my spine. Captain Park, sitting next to me, glanced my way. His eyes asked a question. "Do you know what this is?" I shook my head. "No, I do not know either." The door opened. Our commanding officer walked in. We all shot to our feet. "Sit," he gestured with his hand. We sat down together. Chairs creaked in unison. The commander was a man in his mid-50s. Deep lines carved his face. The face of someone who had seen war. But he was different that day. Dark circles sagged under his eyes. His lips were dry and cracked. It looked like he had not slept at all. "Comrades," he began to speak. His voice was hoarse. It was not the voice we knew. "From today, we begin a new type of training." The room grew even quieter. "This training," he paused. He took a deep breath. His chest rose and fell heavily. "Will be conducted under real conditions. There will be no failure. Real conditions." The air grew heavier. Captain Park swallowed hard. I could hear the sound in his throat. I sat still, but cold sweat ran down my back. Real conditions, I thought. Does that mean war? Or a live infiltration mission? The commander picked up a sheet of paper. The paper trembled. His hand was shaking. "We depart this Saturday at 20 hours. The destination will be disclosed on site." Disclosed on site. Ordinarily, they told us everything in advance. The training ground, The objective, the scenario, all of it. This time, it was different. Something was being hidden. The participants will be 15 in total. I will now call the names. He lowered his eyes to the paper. Lieutenant Colonel Kim. That was my name. My heart dropped. Captain Park, Captain Choi, Major Lee, Major Jung. He kept calling names. In the end, 15 names were read. They were the most capable men in the unit. Experts in marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat, infiltration, explosives, the best in every field. Why only the best? My unease grew. The commander looked around at us. You will not divulge any details of this training to anyone outside. His voice dropped lower. You will tell nothing to your family. Not to your friends, not to your comrades. Silence fell. This is not a request. It is an order. The meeting ended. We stepped out into the corridor. Officers whispered to each other. What does it mean? Real conditions. Are we going to war? Maybe it is a southern infiltration drill. Why are we not allowed to tell even our families? I said nothing, but a dark mass was swelling in my chest, a black uneasiness. Saturday came. I had dinner at home. My wife made soybean paste stew. Usually, I would have eaten it with a good appetite, but that day, it would not go down. It felt like my throat was blocked. What is wrong? Do you not have any appetite? My wife asked. I shook my head. I am fine. Just tired. It was a lie. She looked straight into my eyes. It seemed like she knew something, but she did not ask. She simply ladled more soup into my bowl. At 8 p.m., a military truck was waiting at the base gate. Brr. The engine rumbled dully. The smell of exhaust stung my nose. One by one, the 15 officers climbed aboard. I followed and got into the back. It was dark inside. A single small light flickered overhead. Everyone sat in silence. Only their eyes shone faintly in the dark. The truck started moving. It rattled and bounced, speeding down an unpaved road. Our bodies swayed right and left. Outside the window, nothing could be seen. Only pitch-black darkness. After about an hour, the truck stopped. We are here. Get down, the commander's voice. We climbed out one by one. Cold wind slapped my face. And then it hit me. The smell. A strange smell. The smell of burning. The smell of oil. And the smell of people. The ground felt soft the moment my boots touched it. It was not snow. It was not ordinary soil either. It was something else. A flashlight beam swept the ground. A black sheet was spread out. A huge tarp. Move forward. The commander's voice. We walked in a single file, 15 men, one behind the other. Only our footsteps thudded dully. Thump, thump, thump. After about 100 meters, we saw a building ahead, more like a warehouse than a building, an old, rusty steel structure. Light leaked out from inside, through a narrow window, but something was off. The light flickered, like wavering candlelight. Stop. The commander raised his hand. We all halted. He turned toward us. In the moonlight, his face looked ghostly pale. His lips trembled visibly. Before we go in, I need to tell you something. His voice broke. What you see today, you will never repeat to anyone. No one. Silence. This is not an order. He spoke slowly. It is a warning. The iron door opened. Creak. The rusty sound stabbed my ears. Hot air rushed out from inside. The smell hit me along with the heat. The smell of burning. But it was not wood or coal burning. It was something else. Like burning hair, burning rubber. And, next to me, Captain Park gagged. Ugh, go inside, the commander said. I drew a deep breath and stepped in. The first thing I felt was the heat. Thick, hot air slapped my face. It felt like I had walked into a sauna. The second thing was the sound. A low, constant hum. Machines running. Ventilators. Several of them were mounted on the ceiling. The third thing was eyes. The light snapped on. Click. My eyes were blinded for a second. Intense light poured down from the ceiling. When my vision came back, my heart plunged. There were people. About 20 of them were on the floor. No, they were not sitting. They were tied up. Their hands were bound behind their backs. Black cloths were wrapped over their eyes. Gags were stuffed into their mouths. They were shaking. Their whole bodies trembled. What is this? Captain Choi, standing beside me, asked in a trembling voice. The commander did not answer. He simply pointed forward. There was a platform. On the platform stood a man. He was not in uniform. He wore a white coat, like a doctor's coat. A mask covered his face. Only his eyes were visible. Cold eyes. He looked at us. "Welcome, comrades." His voice was low and icy. "From today, you will participate in a new form of training." He gestured toward the bound people. "This time, you will train using real human subjects." Real human subjects. My heart started thudding like crazy. Who are those people? Captain Park asked. The man in the white coat slowly turned his head. Traitors. That was his answer. People who threaten the state. Traitors. I looked at the tied-up people again. One of them lifted his head. His blindfold had slipped slightly. I saw his eyes. He was young, maybe late 20s. Tears pooled in his eyes. A muffled sound leaked out past the gag. My hand shook. Something was terribly wrong. This was not training. The man in the white coat continued. For the next 3 days, you will learn interrogation techniques. He pointed to a table beside him. On it, something was laid out. Tools, pliers, hammers, knives, and others. Each of you will be assigned one subject. You will learn how to extract information. My mind went blank. This is not training, I thought. This is not training. Beside me, Major Lee took a step back. I cannot do this. His voice shook. The commander glared at him. It is an order. But, I said, it is an order. The commander roared. Someone handed me a pair of goggles. Put these on. My hands trembled. I dropped them 3 times before I managed to put them on. The world turned blurry behind the cloudy plastic lenses. Lieutenant Colonel Kim, step forward. My name was called. My feet would not move. They felt nailed to the floor. Step forward. The commander's voice again. I forced myself to walk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. I stopped in front of one of the bound men. A middle-aged man, thin frame, graying hair. His clothes were torn. Bruises covered his face. Begin. The man in the white coat said. I looked at him. What do you mean? Begin. Begin extracting information. Ask questions. If he does not answer, he nodded toward the table. Use the tools. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. The middle-aged man raised his head. Through the gap in the blindfold, he stared in my direction. A faint sound came from his mouth. Ooh. Ugh. The gag kept him from forming words. I looked straight into his eyes. In those eyes, there was naked fear. But that was not all. In that gaze, there was another question. Are you even human? That night, what I saw were not enemies. Not training targets. They were just people like me. People who breathed, who were afraid, who wanted to live. In that moment, I understood. I had to get out. Out of that place. Out of all of this. When we got back to the base that night, I did not sleep at all. I lay in my bunk, unable to close my eyes. Every time I tried, the scenes played again. The bound people, their trembling hands, their eyes. Around 4 a.m, I finally drifted off, only to wake up less than an hour later from a nightmare. 3 days passed. During those 3 days, I moved like a machine, receiving orders, carrying them out, returning. I tried not to think. Thinking would have driven me insane. On the 3rd night, the training ended. The commander gathered us one last time. Forget everything you saw today, and never speak of it. This is a state secret. We nodded. No one met anyone else's eyes. We all stared at the floor. 15 officers walked back to their quarters in silence. 5 days later, something strange happened. When I arrived at my office, I saw something on my desk, a brown envelope, about the size of a small letter. I thought it was some paperwork, but when I got closer, I knew something was wrong. There was no writing on it, no sender, no recipient, no department stamp, just a plain, unmarked brown envelope. I looked around. 3 other officers were in the room, busy with their own work. I picked up the envelope. It was light, like it contained only a few sheets of paper. My hand shook slightly. For some reason, I felt like I should not open it. I took a deep breath and tore it open. Inside were 4 photographs, black and white. The quality was poor. They looked like they had been taken from a distance. The first photo made my stomach drop. It was the training site, the steel warehouse, the military truck we had ridden in, both clearly captured. The second photo was even more shocking. My face. It was me, coming out of the training facility. Beside me were Captain Park and Captain Choi. Judging by the angle, it had been taken from somewhere above the building. The third photo showed the bound people, but it was not during the training. They were being loaded somewhere, thrown like sacks into the back of a truck. The fourth photo was so dark I could barely see, but even the faint outlines were enough. My hand trembled. The photos almost slipped from my grasp. I quickly grabbed them and checked the envelope again. There was one more sheet of paper, plain white. On it, a single handwritten line. The letters were neat but looked hastily written. In black ink. Do not speak of what you saw. That was all. No name, no date, just that one sentence. Yet it was enough to send an icy chill down my spine. I shoved the photos back into the envelope. I stuffed it deep into my desk drawer. My hands would not stop shaking. I looked around again. Luckily, no one seemed to have noticed. That afternoon, the strange things began. First, the phone. When I called my wife, I heard a noise. Static. A harsh, crackling interference that had never been there before. Honey, the phone sounds strange. There is some kind of noise, my wife said. Yeah, I hear it too. I will call you later. I hung up, but a bad feeling lingered. Was someone listening to our calls? At lunch, something else felt off. Colleagues who usually joked with me avoided my eyes. When I greeted them, they barely nodded before rushing away, as if I had become someone they were not supposed to be seen with. After work, I headed home. As I passed through the base gate, I had this feeling. Someone was watching me. I turned around, but there was no one, only the dark road behind me. It is just in your head, I told myself. I walked toward home. It was about a 10-minute walk. As I walked down a narrow lane, I heard footsteps behind me. Clack, clack, steady, heavy steps. Like military boots, I increased my pace. The footsteps behind me quickened too. I stopped. 3 seconds later, the footsteps also stopped. My heart was pounding wildly. Slowly, I turned around. In the darkness, I saw a shadow, stretched long under a street lamp, tall, probably a man. Who is there? I asked. No answer. Who is there? I asked again, my voice trembling. The shadow moved. Slowly, it retreated, then melted into the darkness. I stood frozen in place. Cold sweat dripped down my back. By the time I reached home, my legs were shaking. I opened the door. My wife was in the kitchen making dinner. I smelled soybean paste stew. You are early. She smiled. I forced a smile. Yeah, finished early today, but my voice was shaking. She looked at me strangely. Are you all right? You look pale. Did something happen? I put down my spoon. I am fine. Just tired. I need to eat and sleep early. That night, before going to bed, I peeked out the window. The alley in front of our house was visible. Under the street lamp, someone was standing there, smoking, it seemed. But something was off. He was staring at our house, not glancing around, just staring only at our house, without moving. I pulled the curtain shut. My heart was pounding. Someone is watching me. That thought filled my head. From that night on, I knew my life was no longer safe, and someday I would have to choose, stay or run. A week passed. During that week, the surveillance continued. Every night, someone stood in front of our house. During the day, unfamiliar faces brushed past me in the office corridors. The phone static grew worse, crackling every time we spoke. That Saturday evening, my wife and I were having dinner. We had sent our child to a relative's house. We said it was to help with holiday preparations. But in truth, I had sent the child away because I did not know what might happen. Something happened to you, did it not? My wife asked quietly. She set her spoon down and looked straight into my eyes. She had always known when I was hiding something. I said nothing. I did not know what to say. I just pretended to eat. But the rice would not go down. I know there is that man outside our house, standing in the same place every night. Her voice trembled. And your phone sounds strange. There is always that crackling noise. What is going on? I put my spoon down. I took her hand. It was cold. I am sorry. That was all I could say. I am sorry I cannot protect you. I am sorry I cannot protect our child. She shook her head. Tears welled up in her eyes. What are you talking about? You did nothing wrong. I saw something I should never have seen. I spoke slowly. And now I have to pay for it. She stayed silent. She simply squeezed my hand tightly. The warmth of that hand was my last comfort. After dinner, I started packing a small bag, 2 sets of clothes, 3 pairs of socks, a little money, a small knife. I wanted to pack more, but I could not. I needed to move fast. She came out of the kitchen with something wrapped in paper, 3 rice balls, tightly wrapped in seaweed. Eat these when you get hungry. Her voice shook. Thank you. I put the rice balls in my bag, then held her in my arms. She sobbed against my chest. Her shoulders trembled. Will we be able to see each other again? She whispered. We will. I promise. But deep down, I knew it might be a lie. At 3 a.m., the world was quiet. No one was on the streets. I slung the bag over my shoulder and opened the door. She stood behind me, watching. Be careful. Those were her last words. I nodded and stepped outside. I did not look back as I closed the door. If I turned around, I knew I would not be able to leave. I slipped out of the alley. The man who had been monitoring us was nowhere in sight. Maybe it was the shift change. I had been waiting for this moment. I ran through the back alleys. My boots thudded heavily on the ground. The sound felt too loud, but I could not stop. It was about 3 kilometers to the train station. If I ran, I could get there in 20 minutes, but I could not use the station. There were checkpoints. Instead, I had to board a freight truck, a truck heading toward the outskirts. I ran for an hour, until I reached an outer road. In the distance, I heard a truck, a large freight truck, hauling coal. I hid and waited. As the truck slowed down, I sprinted and jumped. I grabbed onto the side of the cargo bed. My hands slipped on the coal dust, but I managed to haul myself up and hid behind the coal pile. My entire body turned black. The truck headed north, toward Haisan, a border city. On the other side of the river was China. For 5 hours we drove. My body shook painfully with every bump. The stink of coal filled my nose. I endured. When dawn broke, and the eastern sky began to glow red, the truck stopped. I quickly jumped off. My legs tingled from numbness, but I kept running. This was the outskirts of Haisan. In the distance, I saw a river, the Tumen River. On the other side, China. I could not cross in daylight. There were patrols. I had to wait for night. I found an abandoned house, a half-collapsed building with half its roof gone. I hid inside. I took out the rice balls my wife had made. The salty taste of seaweed spread in my mouth. Tears came. When night fell, the moon rose. A full moon. Too bright, but I had no choice. If I did not go tonight, I might never get another chance. I walked toward the river, carefully, one step at a time. Snow lay on the ground. My footprints were clearly visible. Even so, I kept going. I reached the riverbank. My breath caught. My heart pounded in my chest. Below, the river glimmered, frozen over, shining under the moonlight. I looked up at the sky. The stars sparkled overhead. If this is real training, then this is my mission now, I muttered to myself. Then I walked toward the river. 1 step, 2 steps, without looking back. A day after crossing the river, I set foot on Chinese soil. For a brief moment, I felt relief. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. The real hell was just beginning. Once across, I slipped into the forest. I had to hide during the day. I crouched behind a tree, trying to sleep, but the cold would not let me. My soaked clothes were stiff with frost. My whole body shook. At dusk, I saw a village. A small Chinese village. Smoke rose from chimneys. The smell of people living their lives hung in the air. I cautiously walked down into the village. As I moved along a narrow alley, someone called out to me, "You are Korean, right?" In Korean? With a Chinese accent. I turned. A middle-aged man stood there, short and chubby. "Who are you?" I asked, wary. "Me. I am a helper. I take people from here to there." He smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "Do you have money?" I took out what I had. It was everything. He counted it. "Not much, but fine. Come with me for now." I had no choice. Alone, I had no idea where to go. He led me to a shabby house. The walls were cracked, the ceiling low. Inside, there were others. About 5 people, all with exhausted faces. "Stay here for a day. Tomorrow I will take you to the next place," he said. I nodded and sat down in a corner. No one even looked at me. They were too drained. Night deepened. Leaning against the wall, I closed my eyes. I do not know how long I slept. Suddenly, the door burst open. "Get up! Now!" The man's voice, but it had changed. Sharper, colder. When I opened my eyes, several men stood in the doorway. They were holding something. Clubs. What are you doing?" I asked. No answer. Someone grabbed my arm roughly and yanked me up. "Be quiet. If you scream, you die." A voice hissed in my ear. Cold metal pressed against my side. A knife. I could not resist. No one else could either. We were all dragged outside. A truck waited. We were thrown into the cargo bed. The doors slammed shut. Darkness. The truck began to move. I lost track of time. It felt like hours. Our bodies jolted with every bump. The road was unpaved. Finally, the truck stopped. The door opened. Harsh light blinded me. We were pulled out. A rundown warehouse-like building. Nothing around us. Only mountains and forest. "Get inside." Someone shoved me in the back. Stumbling, I entered. More people were inside. Maybe 20. All in the same condition. I heard chains clinking. Cold metal closed around my wrists. Handcuffs. Then around my ankles, linked by a chain. You work. You eat. You do not work. You starve. That was the rule. The next day, the work began. We hauled bricks, transferring heavy bricks, from the trucks into the warehouse. We worked 15 hours a day. We had only a 30-minute break at lunch. We were fed twice a day. Corn gruel and a small piece of bread. That was all. Hunger gnawed at us. Pain racked our bodies. But we could not stop. If we did, we were beaten. After about a week, a man working next to me spoke. "Where are you from?" His voice was barely more than a whisper. "Pyongyang," I replied. "I am from the north, too. I have been here 2 years." His voice quivered. 2 years. "Yeah. I tried to escape and got caught. I have been here ever since." He sighed. "I saw that training too," he suddenly whispered. My chest clenched. "What did you say? That training?" The one with people tied up. I was there. I used to be a soldier. He looked straight at me. That was not training. It was an experiment. Human experiments. My hands shook. A brick slipped from my grip and shattered on the ground. "Hey, be careful," the guard shouted. I hurried to pick up another brick, but my thoughts were in chaos. That night, I could not sleep. His words echoed in my head. Experiments. Then what happened to those people? My hands trembled. I had to get out of there, no matter what. A month passed. All that time, I watched. I waited for a chance. The surveillance was tight. 7 guards during the day, 3 at night. But there was a pattern. Around 3 a.m., during guard change, there was a gap. About 5 minutes. That was my window. One night, a heavy rainstorm raged. Rain hammered down in sheets. Thunder boomed. Lightning flashed. I knew the guards were lazier in weather like this. This was the day. At 2 a.m., I lay still, pretending to sleep. But my eyes were open, ears sharp. I listened to their footsteps, to the rain, to the thunder. At 3 a.m., one guard left his post to switch shifts. Another stood at the far side of the warehouse. This was it. I rose quietly. I had already freed my shackles 2 nights earlier. They were old chains. I had filed them bit by bit with a stone until they broke. I did the same with the ones on my ankles. I moved toward a small window. It was barely big enough for a person to squeeze through. The glass was broken. Carefully, I pushed my body through. My shoulder got stuck. I held my breath and forced myself forward. A creak sounded. "Who is there?" A guard's voice. I drove my body through with all my strength. I heard something tear at my shoulder. My clothes had ripped, but my body was outside. I hit the ground. Mud soaked me instantly. I jumped up and ran. "He is escaping. Get him." Shouts behind me. I did not stop. I sprinted through the rain, weaving between trees. Flashlight beams sliced through the darkness behind me. Gunshots cracked. One hit a tree right next to me, bark exploding in my face. I ran faster. My lungs burned, but I could not stop. I ran for an hour. Eventually, the sounds behind me faded. The rain had covered my tracks. I hid behind a tree, gasping for air. My whole body shook from cold and fear. Dawn approached. Rain stopped. I looked around. Mountains. I had no idea where I was, but I knew one thing. I had to go south. South lay Laos. From there, I could reach Thailand. For 10 days, I walked. By day, I hid. By night, I moved. I used the stars to find my way. There was nothing to eat. I chewed on tree bark. I drank from streams. Hunger clawed at my insides, but I kept going. My feet were ruined. My shoes had fallen apart. I was practically barefoot. Blood oozed from my soles, but I did not stop. On the 8th day, I saw a river. A big one. It must have been the Mekong. I had seen it on a map. If I crossed this river, I would be in Laos. I went down to the bank. The water surged past, brown and opaque. I could not tell how deep it was. I had no choice. I stripped off my clothes, held them over my head, and stepped into the river. The water was cold. My feet did not touch the bottom. It was deep. I had to swim. With one arm, I held my clothes. With the other in both legs, I swam. The current was strong. I was swept downstream, dragged along by the flow. My arms screamed with pain. My breathing grew ragged. Water filled my mouth. So this is where I die. The thought flashed for a moment, but I could not give up. I kicked harder. I thrashed my arms. The opposite bank drew nearer. Just a little more. My hand brushed mud. I grabbed it and dragged myself up. I collapsed on the bank, panting. My whole body was limp, but I was alive. I had crossed the river. Voices echoed in my ears. The screams from that night. The sobs. The ragged breathing. "Do not forget," a voice whispered. It was only in my head, but it was clear. "Do not forget us. I closed my eyes. Tears spilled out. I will not forget. Never, I said under my breath. Then I stood up again. It was not over. I had to go further. To Thailand. I walked south, one step at a time, slowly, but without stopping. 3 more days passed. I was in Laos now. I took narrow mountain paths, avoiding villages. I could not risk being seen. Anyone could report me. I still had almost nothing to eat. I chewed wild plants. Their bitterness filled my mouth. I drank from streams. It upset my stomach, but I had no choice. My feet were completely destroyed. Toenails had fallen off. Blood and pus seeped with each step. Pain stabbed with every movement, but by then, I was used to the pain. On the 10th day, I saw lights in the distance. Village lights. But something was different. Neon signs glowed. It looked like a bigger town. I walked closer. A sign came into view. The letters were in Thai. I could not read them, but I knew. This was Thailand. My legs buckled. I sank down right there and cried. I had made it. I was alive. I had come this far, but it was not over yet. I had to find the police. I had to ask for asylum. I got up again and walked into town. It was 4 a.m. The streets were quiet. Shops were closed. People slept. I was the only one walking. I found a police station, a small building, with a blue light over the door. I walked up to it. I raised my hand to knock, but my strength was gone. The sound was faint. I knocked again, harder. The door opened. A young officer stepped out. He wore a uniform. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Help! Help me!" I said in English. I knew only a little, but I knew that phrase. North Korea. I am from North Korea. His eyes changed. He grabbed his radio and spoke rapidly in Thai. I could not understand. Another officer came out, older. He took one look at me and nodded. He walked up to me. "It is all right now. You are safe." In Korean, broken, but clear. I crumpled. My legs lost all strength. I collapsed on the ground. Every muscle slackened. All the tension I had been holding for so long released at once. I sobbed, loudly. My shoulders shook. I could not breathe, but I could not stop. "It is all right," he said again, patting my shoulder. "No one is going to hurt you now." Words I had never heard before. That I was all right. That I was safe. Those words pierced my heart. More tears poured out. They led me inside the station. I sat on a chair. They gave me warm tea. My hands trembled so much. I could not hold the cup. The officer held my hands and lifted the cup with me. I drank. Sweetness spread through my mouth. There was sugar in the tea. They gave me bread. 2 small rolls. I took a bite. It melted softly in my mouth. It was the best bread I had ever eaten. I cried as I ate. "Eat slowly. If you eat too much, your stomach will hurt," he said. I nodded, but I could not stop. I was starving. An ambulance arrived. They said I needed to go to a hospital. They had to run tests. I was laid on a stretcher. The inside of the ambulance was spotless. White sheets, medical equipment. "You will be fine," a paramedic said, holding my hand. The warmth of that hand was comforting. Through the window, I saw the sky. The eastern horizon was turning pale. The sun was rising. A new morning. I watched the light. The sky glowed orange. Rays of sunlight spilled through the clouds. It was beautiful. I am alive. The thought finally settled. I really am alive. My chest swelled. A wave of emotion that was neither joy nor sorrow washed over me. Tears came again, but this time they were different. Not tears of fear, tears of relief. At the hospital, doctors examined me. They hooked up an IV drip. Cool fluid flowed into my arm. They disinfected my feet. It hurt, but I endured. They applied ointment and wrapped them in gauze. "You will need to stay for about 2 days." One doctor said, in halting Korean, You are severely dehydrated and malnourished. Your feet are infected. You need rest. I nodded. I lay on the bed. The mattress was soft. In 27 years, I had never lain on such a comfortable bed. I closed my eyes. For once, no nightmares came, just deep, peaceful sleep. Spring 2016. I arrived in Seoul. From Thailand, I went to the Korean embassy, then boarded a plane. I still remember the moment I stepped off at Incheon Airport. Everything was so bright, so clean. People were smiling. I spent 3 months at a place called Hanawan, a resettlement center. There, we learned about South Korean society, how to use banks, how to ride the subway, how to find jobs. Everything was new to me, but slowly, I learned. After the program, I got a small room in Seoul, a one-room studio. Sunlight streamed through the window. There was a bed, a desk, a tiny kitchen. It was my space, a place I had chosen. The first night, I opened the window. Cool air flowed in. It was chilly, but fresh. City lights sparkled outside. I could hear cars, laughter, fragments of conversation. So this is freedom, I whispered. For the first time, I felt the weight of that word. I found a job at a factory, simple manual labor. It was hard, but I did not mind, because it was work I had chosen, with my own will. I received a paycheck, deposited into an account under my name. When I saw the numbers, I cried. On weekends, I walked along the Han River. Cyclists whizzed past. Couples strolled hand in hand. Children ran around, laughing. To anyone else, it was an ordinary scene. To me, it was a miracle. At night, I still had dreams. The training hall, the bound people, their eyes, their trembling hands. The words on the envelope also appeared. Do not speak of what you saw. I woke drenched in sweat, breath ragged, heart racing. But when I looked around, I saw my room, my safe room. Through the window, the lights of Seoul shone. It is all right. You are all right now, I told myself. Slowly, my breathing steadied. A year passed. I grew more accustomed to the way people spoke. My accent was different, but people were patient. I made a friend, a coworker from the factory. He knew where I had come from, but he did not treat me specially. He treated me simply as a colleague. Do you want to watch a movie this weekend? He asked. I nodded. We went to the cinema. The huge screen filled my field of vision. We ate popcorn. I laughed at funny scenes. My eyes stung at sad scenes. It was an ordinary weekend, but to me, it was precious. 2 years passed. It was 2018. I was sitting by the window at a cafe, watching the street outside. People came and went. Some hurried. Some strolled. Some walked while talking on their phones. So many different kinds of people, all carrying their own stories, and I was one of them now. I took out my phone. A phone registered in my name. I opened the photo album. Pictures of the Han River, photos with friends, cups of coffee at cafes, ordinary pictures. I am living well, I murmured. It felt like I was speaking to them, the people I had seen in that training hall. I am living well. I am living the life you wanted to live. Tears slipped down. Silently. I did not wipe them away. Evening came. On my way home, I took the subway. It was crowded. Students, office workers, elderly people, children. I stood among them. Next stop, Jongno 3ga. The announcement played. A familiar voice, one I heard every day. The doors opened. Some people got off. I stepped out as well. I climbed the stairs and emerged onto the street. The evening air brushed my face. Cool and gentle. I looked up. The sky was painted with sunset colors. Orange and pink blended together. Clouds drifted slowly. It is beautiful, I whispered. I was grateful that I could stand there and see that sky. When I reached home, I opened the door and turned on the light. Warm brightness filled the room. I took off my shoes and sat on the bed. Do not speak of what you saw. The sentence came back to me, but it no longer had the same power. No, I said out loud. I will speak now. I will speak about a world where people vanish without a trace. About the eyes I saw that night, and about why I survived. Not for revenge. Not for honor. For one simple reason. Because I want to live as a human being. And now, I opened the window. Night air flowed in. The lights of Seoul glittered. In the distance, I could see Namsan Tower glowing red. Thank you. I did not know who I was thanking, but I wanted to say it. Thank you for letting me live. A soft breeze blew. It brushed through my hair. That night, I slept in peace. No nightmares came.